and welcome to season 7 of the Sibyl podcast. I'm Mo, your host, and I'm thrilled to embark on this new chapter with you. As we kick off the season, I hope you get ready for more captivating conversations that celebrate cultural diversity and also delve into the personal journeys of our guests from all around the world. Throughout the season, we'll continue our tradition of exploring pressing issues and sharing intimate stories that resonate with our contemporary age. From navigating cultural nuances to overcoming life's obstacles, each episode promises to be a compelling exploration of the human experience. So, as your host, I welcome you to join us as we journey through the rich tapestry of global cultures, guided by the courage and vulnerability of our guests. Together, let's ignite curiosity, find inspiration, and set our stories free. Welcome aboard. Now enjoy the show. Hello everyone, welcome back to the podcast. This is Mo, and I'm super excited to share this latest story. I've known her since college days, and she was one of the students I tutored, and she's doing amazingly well. She is a woman of many, many talents, and in addition to being a lovely wife to her husband, she's also a mom to 3 beautiful daughters. And if you follow her on WhatsApp, you know she's very, very big on family. And she's also a mentor and role model to so many, many young people. One of her core stories is that no one should be stigmatized for seeking help. So she has a lot of projects where she works, provides a form of support to younger people finding meaning in life, finding comfort from issues like grief, depression, addictions, and abuse. She started what you call Room 707, and this started in 2021. And since they started, they have been able to coach more than 300 people who have gone through their therapy program, while at the same time, driving this information through targeting secondary school students. She's also a pharmacist by profession and currently the global head of special projects at mPharma. She sits on the board for an international medical device company. As a non-executive director, she's also a budding life coach and mentor to a number of young people. Everyone, please join me welcoming KSA, also known as Kemi Sope-Agbebi, to the podcast. Hello.
Oh, hi, Mo. Thank you so much for that warm reception and introduction. I count it as a privilege to be on the Mo Simbi podcast. I think I can say that I pretty much know when it started.
Yeah.
Back then, Mo was doing podcasts when podcast wasn't really that much of a thing.
Yeah.
Now a lot of people are, trying to explore that channel to impact lives, and just share, have real conversations. Like you rightly said, we met back in pharmacy school, and Mo was like a big senior to me. Like, honestly, I can't get tired of saying this. You're one of the most influential people, I've experienced my entire life. That's the truth. You have no idea the amount of impact that you silently, actually did to me back then. It was a lot. I felt like, what exactly did Mo see in me, right?
Are you kidding me?
I'm serious. You were just being yourself, like really a good-hearted human, right? But it went a long way for me. It went a long way. I'm not sure if you ever saw my Facebook post years ago. I sort of wrote about the 3 most influential people in my life at that moment, at that time. And you were on that list. I'm not sure you ever saw it anyways.
I don't think
you were
so.
On that, yeah, and then I wrote about, oh my goodness, so very, very impactful, and just knowing who you are in terms of everything about you. I mean, I've been following you quite a lot, with your academic, your intellectualism, you are a good mind. Honestly, I really look out for you a lot. LinkedIn, everywhere, rooting for you. I'm glad to be on the show. I was so excited when you said we should have you on the show. My God. better late than never. Yeah. So
No,
that's
no, better late than never. And so, first of all, thank
yeah,
you.
exactly right. It's okay.
I'm very honored. Okay. Let me just say, you. What about you? You're very number one. You're a very great conversationalist, and you're also real. So I want to say that whatever you thought you saw in me, I saw in you as well. And you're
Well,
very real, and you're very vulnerable, and you're very open about kind of what you wanted and what you were looking for. And I think that makes, I don't even know if it's called a mentoring, because there's so much I'm learning from you as well. I think that made for a very easy collaboration, and put it that way. So yeah, you're very real as well, and I still think you've given me a lot more credit, because you've always had greatness in you. So when you say, what am I saying in you? Duh, like, this is you. Look at all the things you've done, and this has just been how many years ago since I met you. So kudos to you is what I'm trying to say here. You've done so well, and you keep inspiring so many people. You've
thank you.
you've gone to places where a lot of people might feel very uncomfortable going. You've tried those places, and you've had conversations that it's like, how is she able to talk about this without that fear of blowback, or people looking at you funny, like when you talk about addiction or even abuse, and so those fragile topics. So you've done a lot, and you are a good. So I'm going to turn that to you, because this is your story. This is your time on the podcast. But I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Thank
We can keep going back and forth.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Let's get on to it, right?
Let's start with you. Let's start with growing up. I know when you've lost both parents, correct?
Sure. Yeah, that's correct.
And I know you also lost one of your siblings. So you've gone through a lot.
Yeah.
But before we talk about grief, and there was a time you wrote about was it your sister? The one that was a sports enthusiast, right? Was that the one we lost?
Yes.
But there's a time you wrote about your mom, and then there was just something about that post that, even talking about it, I'm having a bit of corporal sensation. There's where he talks about grief. And for me, we will go through grief in our life in different phases. But there's something you said about your mom that kind of stood to me. And you related with you being a mom. And I think it was around Mother's Day, maybe 2-3 years ago. I can't remember the post. But related to it being a mom, and then you losing your mom, and all the layers of grief, and then all the other, experiences you had. But let's start with just you growing up. Tell us a little bit about your family structure, how many siblings you had, and what life was like, as a child growing up in Nigeria.
Well, life was pretty much challenging for me growing up. I think that it probably comes with some kind of people. There's a way intelligence makes you to be just more aware than other children, right? I grew up in a family of five, rather. So I had two siblings, we're all girls, and my father wanted a boy. He wanted a boy so much because he was the only boy from his mother as well. And a lot of pressure was on my mom, who also turned those pressures on us. But I heard things like, I don't expect something so much to come out from a woman, from my dad, and those words, even though he says it to three of us, right, it affected me more than my sisters. So from a very young age, I had that feeling of not being wanted, not being loved, not being appreciated for who you are. And interestingly, almost all of I developed that competitive nature, that tendency to just want to prove my father wrong, right? So all of my effort, committed to excelling in life or academics, back then, it was just because I was trying to prove a point, I had some other form of stuff driving me back then, a lot of bitterness in my heart, driving me towards just wanting to excel. So I didn't excel. I didn't, almost like I had really negative motives for excelling. First I wanted to put my father wrong, and I then wanted to embarrass him. So I rehearsed over a mirror for years, how I finished pharmacy school, I graduate as the best student, and they give me the opportunity to speak on the podium. Then I use that privilege to just embarrass my father. That, oh, I did all of this without the help of my dad, just my mom. So I rehearsed all of those things, over the mirror, and it was crazy, So I read Bond's Midnight Candles because I had a motivation, something that was driving me, like, no, I'm a woman, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going to be somebody in life, So, that led me to finishing school with a first class, of course, and all of the intelligence I built, because I didn't have the struggles that many young ladies had. Like, boys were not an issue for me, So yeah, my dad wanted a boy badly. I don't blame him. He was the only boy in his when from his mom. Yeah, so I really don't blame him. Even myself, I wanted a brother so bad. My dad talked so much about boys to me that I wanted a boy so bad. I prayed to God to give me a brother. And when God didn't give me a brother, I was really upset with God for not giving me a brother. And then I tried to find my part outside of God, right? That's the truth. It was that bad. And then before you know it, I was trying to dress like a boy a lot. Don't wear earrings, cut my hair. I was on low cut, wear baggy stuff, So I wanted to be a boy. And I did the manly things in the house, So it all stemmed from those words my father said to me, even as young as maybe 5 years old. And like I said, I feel like now I have my children. I see how it's so important for parents to identify the differences in their children and tend to modify their approach to parenting them as against them using one-step approach. Like I said, I have 2 siblings. My father would say the same things to them. It didn't affect them the way it affected me. It didn't impact them the way it impacted me. If my dad says some words to me, I will brood on it, and maybe for like a week, I probably don't talk to him. My sisters are back talking to him in 2 hours, and in my mind, I'm like, you're so stupid, right? Your father said this to you and you're already playing with him, So it was just very, very dramatic. But then looking back now, I see how the real burden there was just a burden of being an intelligent person, and from a young age, and just being to identify good from evil, not being a child. I stopped being a child very early because I was grasping things that ideally adults should be grasping. The way a child, you beat a child. I mean, I have children now, so I understand better. You beat a child and 30 minutes she's playing with you back. I wasn't that type of child. I will process it. You actually hit me. As far back, I remember things as far back as being like 5 years old, so it was just a burden of being an intelligent child. And interestingly, I have a daughter. One of my children be playing that pattern. And it's not funny. I look at her and I'm like, I see myself so much in her. I'm like, oh my God, this must have been but I lived that life. So I'm a step ahead of her pretty much. My parents didn't have that opportunity, yet they were blessed with an intelligent child. So like I said, parenting should be tailored, made to each child. So your first responsibility is to identify the uniqueness of each of your children, because they are different, they're unique, right? And then being able to really trust God for the best way to parent them and to raise them, right? So I didn't really have that, and I don't blame my parents for it. You don't give what you do not have, right? Back then, there's nobody gives you a template to raise a child like me, and that's the truth. I know that I was different, I was unique, just from the experiences I had, it was just really clear. And so my desire to want to be successful in life was because back then, I wanted to prove my father wrong. I wanted to show him that even though I was a lady, I was a girl. So naturally, very competitive, with any guy say, so I didn't really have the kind of struggles that most ladies had in terms of, that tendency to be carried away with guys, in terms of their emotions and all of that, or exposed to, from your hormones changing from teenager and all of that, studying a lot of romantic novels and trying to find a guy that you express the feeling of love to and all of that. I didn't like guys. So I didn't, guys will pass compliments to me and it just falls on deaf ears. I'm like, who exactly are you talking to? So I didn't have that struggle. I was buried in books. I'll tell you this funny thing that happened, right? On one of the days I was really upset with my dad. I left the house and really, I had this friend, that I knew he liked me, but then I wasn't really giving him face, right? And I knew that my father would always say, I will disown you if you get pregnant. So I felt like that's the only thing that could hurt him. So that day I was so upset with him. I can't beat him. I can't do anything. What do? I need to go get pregnant. So I left the house angrily that day. I went to the only guy's house that I felt liked me. Well, a lot of guys liked me, but I felt like I wanted to go to that guy's house. So I went to the guy's house. Now, this is a guy that he's never held my hand. He's never hugged me. He's never done anything because I was...
But surely he didn't get me pregnant.
I was very, very strict, right? Then I go to his house. And I'm acting funny towards him. I'm trying to sit on his laps. I didn't know what next to do because I didn't read Mills and Bowen. I didn't do all that. What do you do next? How do you kiss a guy? I didn't know. So I was acting funny towards him. And he just noticed that something wasn't right. And then he goes, Kemi, are you okay? I'm like, I was so proud. Like, what do you mean by my okay? You're not even happy I came to your house unsolicited? Okay, you know what? And then the guy says, can we step out for a minute? And then I got angry. I came to your house and you're saying I should step out. So I started walking away. In that moment, he didn't take advantage of me. The story would have been different today. I had the privilege to give the toast on the wedding day, and I made reference to that particular.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was
the wife should send you flowers.
I was probably 14 years old, maybe 14, because I met him while I was really young and he was way older, but he didn't take advantage of me. So I was like, wow, I really appreciated that. But in that moment, I was going to act out of anger, So that's how much childhood was like. And I struggled with being loved the way I wanted to be loved. And then I started falling into depression and attempted suicide maybe like 2 or 3 times as a child. Just imagine that a really young child, and is thinking suicide, right? It's crazy. Like now I play back my life sometimes and I'm like, what was going on in this young girl? Like I did enjoy childhood. I was just really bothered, so sensitive. I was just aware of so many things I shouldn't have been. I wouldn't say I shouldn't have been. I mean, that was just me, really. So
it was just what it was.
Yeah. And all of those experiences put together is why today, in my position as like coaching young people, it's almost like, hey, I've been there, done this, done that. It's helped me. It's all together, come together to form who I am today, and everything about what I do right now, my motivation for exactly what I'm doing right now. I understand what bitterness is because I dealt with it for years. I wanted to go with a good grade. I used to rehearse over the mirror and rehearse how I'll be the best student from school, and then I will use the opportunity to embarrass my father. Like they give you the mic to speak, then I go, I did all of this without the help of my father. Everybody's rejoicing here, blah, blah, blah. I rehearsed in the mirror doing that. So I had years of bitterness. But along the line, things just started changing for me. Things started changing, and I didn't get the opportunity to do that anyways. But then that's how much of bitterness I held in my heart. So people see me in the library studying art. They be like, this girl likes reading. No, I didn't like reading. I had a plan. I was led by, permit me to use the word demons, right? I was a Christian at some point, but but I can't, nobody can argue that way. Something, because I'll pretty much hear the voices leading me the way to go. No, this is how you have to do it, because at the end of the day, even good things that are done for the wrong reasons are not really that good anyways. So I had all the wrong reasons you can imagine to be successful. But at the end of what I see is that I won both ways, because eventually, of course, my brawl with my father was, of course, resolved. And I mean, I had my good grades. I was already on my path to excelling in life. I'll tell you this. When I finished school with the first class, then I started struggling with getting a job. Everything will be right. I get to the final stage, and then I don't get a job. And then I traced it back to bitterness. I traced it back. So eventually it will haunt you. Like, if you find that you struggle with forgiving anybody, it will haunt you eventually, one way or the other. You don't see how it connects with each other. They didn't make sense. The reasons why I didn't get the jobs didn't make sense. But I traced it back to forgiving my father. And when I went on that journey of forgiveness, it was a lot. It was a lot. I went on that journey of forgiveness. Everything just started changing. So I say to people today, it's beyond forgiveness. It just depends on your understanding of the situation, how you perceive yourself in that situation and the other person. But really, no one is beyond forgiveness. That's what I say to people now.
Wow, what a story! And I was just smiling as you were talking, because my childhood and yours was similar. I mean, I had two brothers, so the dynamic was different, but just the impact my father had on me as well, like yours, and having to walk that path of forgiveness. And I definitely echo your words about genuinely forgiving them, because the thing for people like us is that we do have justification for holding on to that anger. Like, you can write a whole list of everything they've done, and the world would tell you yes, but you know that there's something holding you back. You know, and it wasn't easy for me. This was my own was in 2018. Because then, before that, I didn't care if this guy was dying. I really didn't care. I went from hating, like, when I say hatred for this person, like, he was the Hitler on my list, and the more and my success, my pull towards excellence was always as a way to show him something. Now, my father was different in the sense that it wasn't like he wanted a boy, but for whatever reason, I just felt like I don't even know he was always the way he would talk, one, and then we never had a close relationship growing up. I would just hear him talk at me instead of talk to me. And then just some other things going on, and I just developed that special hatred for him, which, I was justified to do. I had daddy issues, granddaddy issues, and I've talked about this on the podcast. And so hearing you just talk about how you got to that point of the peak of your success, and then you realize that, my goodness, I need to let this go. I think for me, that was when I began to live my life, and I can imagine it was the same for you. And it wasn't an easy work to process. As a matter of fact, even in that exploring forgiveness, I still had some anger issues that I was like, can I just hold on to this little bit, just this tiny bit of this aspect of it? Because you were already used to it. It was like a blanket that you just lugged around, even though it was this lead blanket that was way, way overweight that you shouldn't be carrying. But it felt comfortable. It felt, clothing. And also, thank you for sharing about the importance of adapting our parenting. Gabor Mate is one of these top child psychologists, and there's something he said that no two children have the same parents, right? You can grow up with the same mom and dad, but your experiences are different. Like, I'm the first child, I have two brothers, and sometimes when I hear my brother, the last one, talking about I'm like, that we didn't grow up with the same father. You had a totally different experience, and to me, he's overreactive, but for me, he's a male and female, so there are different dynamics there. But I think most parenting is such a hard job, and I do say it as someone who came into parenting in a very different kind of light, is that I know you will try your best. Even the best parents that do the best things, the child can still turn up one day and still have something to criticize, and that's okay. Like, I'm leaving room for my daughter to criticize my parenting skills, because I always want to have that open communication, which I didn't get from my parents, because I couldn't air the things I felt they weren't doing very well. I wasn't very comfortable talking about the things I didn't like them that they were doing. all that to say, thank you for that reminder of adapting our parenting skills, because our children are so different. And unless you rely on the help of a higher power like
Mm.
God, your best will never be the best enough, because we're not supposed to be the best parents, We're supposed to partner with somebody. And for me, as a Christian, I talk about God a lot, because that's the agenda you should follow. God, how can I help this child? Because left to me, I have my means and ways of having them comply, but it's not about my agenda, it's about your agenda. But thank you for sharing your story, and I can definitely see how all of that you've gone through and how that has impacted. And I'm glad that it feels like you did have it cultivated a new
Yeah.
relationship with your dad before he passed away. And that's really, were they able to meet your kids at any
Oh
point?
yeah, my dad
And
actually
how was
just
that like?
passed last year. He had cancer. Um,
Oh,
I
oh, so sorry to
remember
hear.
as a 7-year-old, I did something I can't seem to remember, but I remember the image of sitting and kneeling in the midst of my father and then some family members. Apparently, he had called those family members to report me for the bad things I'm doing. Of course, at some point I started being a bit
Mm,
rebellious and quite stubborn, because I was trying to fight the way they were seeing me, right? My elder sister passed because she was a sickler, right? So now I'm older, I see why my parents were more intentional with her than myself. But I didn't
mm,
understand that then, right? So it made
understand
me
it then,
do
yeah. She was
the
sick, yeah.
dirty work and do all of that because, of course, she's quite fragile and things like that. But I didn't really understand it. I am still a child. I want what I want in that moment. I need to live like a child. But they passed on the dirty things to me, and I felt like these people didn't want me here. They don't love me. And then to add to that, my father was talking about guys. So I did something which I can't seem to remember. And okay, I think I remember what I did. So I was upset at home, and then I was going to leave the house. So I packed my clothes. I packed a few things. I had maybe like 500 naira. This is a long time ago. And I was going. We lived in a compound family, a compound house, So I was going. I said, I'm leaving. I was crying. Then one of my aunts from our own flat had seen me and said, where are you going? I said, I'm leaving. They don't want me in this house, and I'm leaving. And then she said, how are you going to cope? Do you have money? I said, yes, I have money. I have 500 naira. And then she said this in Yoruba, and I'm going to say it
Mm-hmm.
because I know Mosimbi celebrates culture a lot. So in Yoruba language, she said, Ebi
Mm.
apa from upstairs. And that Ebi apa made me to think about it.
To death.
See, even if it's to go under the bridge, I'll go under the bridge. I'm sure people under the bridge, they live better than I do in this house. He said, you better come back. Ebi apa.
Mm,
And then so she back to my dad, who was so upset, he didn't want to open the door. He said, get out. Anyway, so she brought me. I was
just be going.
going, and I had the family, just like 3-4 people, and my mom. My mom was the submissive wife, so she was just watching drama. And then my dad made a statement that I never forgot. I'm sure I can bet you he can't remember he said those words to me. But I was 7 or 8, and I never forgot. I can remember the day like this. He said that he doesn't expect, he said this in Yoruba, any child to take care of him in old age. And I heard that as a child. I looked up, I was crying, then I looked up, like, what? So what's the point? Why am I bothering myself? I can bet you he can't remember that he used those words. And which is why, you see, the only parenting curriculum that I have for now, until God, everything
From a
that God
parent.
has told me,
Yeah.
just based on elimination, just doing ensuring to not do what my parents did wrong. Do you get my point? So you have to be so intentional about the words that you say to your children, and not assume that they are children. Not speak out of anger, not assume that they are children. But I never forgot those words. And then back in February when he had cancer and I had to be taking him to the hospital, we had hospital visits. I remember one of those days he was sitting behind me and the voice came back. I don't of that day. I'm like, so what are you doing? So you see, every day you make a choice as to who you want to be, because you have demons feeding you. Basically, you have voices in your head. I heard that voice come out from years back, and I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you taking him around? Can't you remember what you had in mind and things like that? And I look at him and I can bet. So he was praying for me, apparently. He was praying for me in that moment. Thank you so much, my daughter. God will bless you. In fact, thank you for healing me. But what was going through my head, I was just playing back the drama that happened. And I was like, oh my God. So words are so deep, especially to your children. You have to be so careful what you say to them. We resolved the issues that we had together way before he had cancer. Just that it happened that the voice came in the moment I was taking him around, and I was happy. I was happy for it. I was happy for him as well. And before he left, I was glad that, he said this to me. He said that, he said it in Yoruba. There's a way your language, if you say it in English, it's like when you say 10 sons cannot do what you have done for them. So imagine that. In all the years, he wanted a son. He wanted a son as a child. He was carried away by his own selfish desires, his own personal desires. And unfortunately, it's okay to have desires, right? You have to be careful how you pass it on, or you force it down the people that hated. So, and it makes that statement. I can bet you half of the things he said back then, he cannot remember. If he was hearing this story today, he'd be like, no, I didn't intend to, but he almost messed my life up. He never knew I attempted suicide several times. He never knew. And I did it because I didn't feel wanted. Yeah.
I'm just going to sit a while and just bask in everything you just talked about. Definitely forgiveness is big on there. And I also imagine just maybe some of the soft regrets he had. But I'm glad that you had that reconciliation, because not many people have that opportunity, right? And you're so right. Sometimes we say things out of anger, and like sometimes when I even remind my dad, you said you did this, to be like, no, I don't remember doing that. And sometimes it even makes you more angry, because you're like, do you know how this has been the central theme of my life? That particular, and you don't even remember, like. Remembering, you don't remember, but and, oh God, God help us as parents, man. That's all I can just say, because I know at the core of it, parents love their children. So for anyone who might believe, especially parents, please, find a way to have that open dialogue with your kids. I think for a lot of kids, just being able to talk to your parents and not be afraid that there was going to be some repercussion, or that they will shout at you, or they will blame you. I think that was one of the biggest things that I would take away from, if I could say what would have been different as a child, because bad things will happen. And so we need to highlight the fact that, yes, bad things will happen, but the more tragic thing is not being able to express that, not being able to have healthy individuals. Because the same adults who will hurt you, there are also some healthy adults who will notch you out of it. And so thanks for that reminder, Kemi. So let's talk about just room 707. I have questions about that, because you've done a lot, especially in ministering to secondary school students.
Okay.
And I don't even know how these kids are doing these days, because, man, we didn't have the internet growing up, right? And that was hard. I can't even imagine the source of distraction coming from different angles, the TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, MySpace, and whatnot. Why are you particular about secondary school students, and how does your room project 707? Because in following your WhatsApp, I've read some of your screenshots of maybe someone going through, like, at the brink of suicide, like actively planning suicide, and you talking them off a ledge. And I imagine that also comes with you sharing a lot of your deeply personal experiences. What about secondary school students? One, what is 707, and how can we equip parents to be better guardians and watchful guardians of their secondary school, or the teenagers, for those that might not be aware of the secondary school, because we have different schooling systems across the world, but we're really talking about teens who might be in high school, or like some college in the US.
Awesome, thank you for that. So room 707, I'll start from describing how we came about that name. So of course it's a support group for young people that are having challenges, having struggles with grief, depression, mental health issues, basically, and then of course addictions. Right? Room 707 came from the scripture about how you have to forgive your brother 70 times, 7 times. So you see, that's room 707, 70 times, 7 times. Okay. So because at the core of what we do really is people finding the ability to forgive themselves. To forgive first themselves, either themselves or if somebody had hurt them. Right, that's the beginning of your journey towards healing, especially where mental health is concerned. At the roots of almost every depression is people actually struggling with forgiving themselves, right? Not even understanding that they need to forgive themselves. That's one of the most difficult things to do, right? To identify and then to do, So that's how we started in 707. But for the secondary school, we realized that having coached about 200 people as at last year, we realized that many of the times people were damaged from way back, right? From way back, just like me. In fact, what I identified, what was frequent is young girls saying when I was the age of 6, almost every young lady that's spoken with that was sexually abused always referred to the age of 6. Now, when I was the age of 6, this happened when I was the age of 6. My daughter is 7 today. I'm more intentional, just because I've heard all of these young lady stories that not necessarily even know themselves, So we realized that we needed to go back. It's easier to treat somebody that's been bleeding for just a couple of years than to treat or help somebody. Offer therapy to someone that's been bleeding for years, right? So we started a project about catching them young and decided to start from the secondary schools for reasons that you have identified now. There's technology, there's a lot happening right now. I've been to schools where the teachers tell me they can't handle it anymore. That's the truth. The school curriculum is not able, it's currently, as it is right now, it's not able to build holistic children. You have young people that have very weak minds. As at last year, majority of the suicidal cases that I treated, these are people that have attempted suicide. They are between the age of 20 and 25. Why are you thinking suicide? Oh, I think I should be doing better in my life. Okay, how did you know you're supposed to be doing better? Oh, I see my friends post on Instagram. I see this on Instagram. I see this on the internet. I'm like, do people really understand that Instagram is social media generally is like make-believe? For example, if I take 10 pictures, right? I take 10 pictures. Yeah. If 5 of them or 6 of them are beautiful, the remaining 4 are really not that good. Angle, lights, things like that. It's the same meal, but I'm going to post the best pictures, and that's on my social media platforms, right? And that's what people see, and then they go, "Oh my God, she's so pretty, she's so beautiful." And what the society is also emphasizing as success and describing as success to these young people is ridiculous, right? It's ridiculous, So we had to start that project of catching them young. We started with secondary schools, but we will soon go to primary schools because I realized that we actually need to go further back. I'm meeting young people in secondary school already into lesbianism, already have the LGBTQ thing. I'm saying Nigeria here, right? It's alarming. Parents don't know half. So one of the things we want to do before the end of the year is to actually write a book that I'm going to put in the true life stories of young people, because anonymously, that I have encountered several of them. Put it in our book just so that parents will have access to it. It will be targeted towards the parents, right? We have one that we released last year that was targeted towards the students. It's called Letters to My Younger Self. So what I did is adults that had passed through our module, we got them to write letters to their younger self, what they would have done differently. So we took that book to the secondary schools and gave to them. See, we are here telling you from the future what it looks like and the kind of things that you need to be very aware about. You need to be careful about, and you don't want to go that path. 9 to 10 of the young people in secondary schools today are addicted to pornography, masturbation. Statistics, yeah. At least that we have encountered. And last year, our target was to hit 1,500 students, which we did. I think we overshot that as well. And I can tell you, 8 to 9 addicted to pornography. They haven't even realized how dangerous what they're doing is. They haven't. I am in a position here that I'm talking to young adults that are trying to get off addiction to masturbation and pornography. And I can see that I was really exposed to these things, right? I work with a team of coaches, by the way, so professionals as well. So I see the impact of 15 years addiction to masturbation and pornography on people today struggling with social anxieties, struggling with low self-esteem, but at the basis is actually an addiction. When masturbation is done in private, but they always feel exposed. I had a young guy that he's a professional, and he told me it came because he's struggling with low self-esteem and social anxiety. When he's in a board meeting, he finds himself to say anything. And I'm like, why? He feels so ashamed. But he's done in secret. Nobody on that board knows what you do in secret. But the addiction has taken a huge part of him that sometimes he will excuse himself from work and go into the loo or something just to feed that addiction. Yeah. So because of that, the sense that I don't have control over my body, it gives them that anxiety and a bit of low self-esteem issue. And it's a big deal. They reach out to us. At some point, 90% of the messages we're getting were people trying to get out of addictions to pornography and masturbation. Serious, intense addictions. I'm saying I got to find out that we have porn movies, not even movies, videos, right, of human beings and animals having sex. I never knew that existed, but until I met a guy that had graduated to that level. And you never stop at a level, right? You just keep wanting more. You keep trying to fulfill or satisfy that desire and wanting more. And I see how crazy that is. Many of them will piggyback to, when I was in secondary school, one of my friends bought a video, one of this. Interestingly, right, I had 2 girls who were exposed to pornography from their father's laptop.
From their father's laptop?
For the first time. Yeah, father's laptop. We have a number of young people exposed to pornography and masturbation from their aunties and uncles watching funny movies and assuming they were children. The girl is 7-year-old and had the image in her head. Didn't understand what was happening, but wanted to just always try it out. And that's it. So honestly, being a coach has helped me to be more intentional about my parenting. And I felt like this is important information for every parent to have. It has helped me to be more intentional about. There are certain things you do not just overlook. You don't assume that, because she's 6 years old, she doesn't really know what's happening. No, so that's basically what Swim 707 our targets with secondary school students, and a lot of depression, low self-esteem happening all the way at secondary. And we have young people with very weak spirits. They are not strong enough. In our own time, or in my own time back then, fine, I had attempted suicide, but for the craziest reasons, right? But nowadays, I don't like the way I'm so slim, I'm so skinny. And then the next thing is, I'm depressed and I want to end my life. I met several young people in secondary schools that were already slitting their wrists. Like, they come and show me the scars, right? And their parents have no idea.
Oh
I
God.
have no idea. I have heard stories that parents are not aware about. Auntie, you're the first person I'm opening up to. But I've been a lesbian from primary school. I've been this, I've been that. The parents have no idea. Parents are so busy, they're so, it's crazy. I can't even stop. When we started catching them here, we just wanted to do 1,005 students
Can't stop now.
and then let it be. But I can't even stop now. It's too late to be silent because it's really terrible. Now you hear a lot of suicide cases with adults, but what is coming behind? Oh my God, it's crazy. I can't wait for people. I need people to know how bad these things are because these children are not comfortable enough with with the closest people to them to even speak to them about it. Room 707 is 95% anonymous. I mean, we have people reaching out to us from America, Canada, Germany, different places all over the world anonymously. And imagine getting DMs, hi, Room 707, I just want to talk right now. And I'm on calls with people sharing deepest secrets with me they've never opened up to anybody. Then I realized how are people really showing love to their fellow people, right? Let's start with siblings, because how does this person not even be able to find one person they could talk to until room 707? So people just being more intentional about how they treat other people, or when you call somebody your friend, what does that really mean, right? How do you really extend that love or create that? You said something about your daughter about how creating a safe, secure environment, a safe space for her, not even when you are not there, So I just look at it and I'm like, what is really happening? People are lost, are absent-minded, right? There was a celebrity in quotes, or a beauty queen, right, that reached out to us. Very beautiful lady. And I mean, I'm the only one that responds. And she struggled with being accepted. She felt like she was ugly. She felt like she needed to be validated by men. And so she was having sexual addiction. That's where it started from. And then I would always take it back to childhood and realize that from that age, the parents never validated her. Nobody around her ever validated her. Like I'm saying to you about how you impacted me. To you, you don't understand what you really did. But in that moment, I never really experienced that kind of validation, right? I didn't experience that kind of going out of your way for somebody. So to me, it meant everything at that point. And to you may be like, what did you really do? But to me, I didn't have a sister or a brother or a aunt or a uncle or my parents go to that extent. Like, a perfect stranger is doing this for me. So it meant a lot. I mean, I wrote a Facebook post, like I said, and I wrote about 3 most influential people, and you were on that list. And I'm going to go and look for it. And you needed to see the things I wrote in that moment, and the 3 people on that.
Wow.
Now you understand better. So you see that, right? That validation, that sense of validation, and in that moment, you provided it for me. And so it was almost everything. Now, some young people are not so lucky. They have a man, a boy, giving them that validation. Exposes them to a life of drugs, drug abuse, exposes them to a life of sex, exposes them to whatever. But it really starts from the family system, from the parents, not giving your children that opportunity to be validated, to have a sense of their intrinsic value. It has to first come from the family system. It is going to be very holistic. There's so much Room 707 can do. There's so much the schools can do. So if a parent is thinking 100% about how, I put my children in the best schools, there's so much the schools can do. I've been to schools, like I said, telling me we can't do it anymore. We've been looking for a group like yours. In fact, I have a meeting with my daughter's school in June. So the principal, the owner of the school had invited me to come and speak to the parents on emotional intelligence. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, if the the principal, or sorry, the proprietress of your daughter's school has recognized what you're doing. Maybe you're really doing something right. Interestingly, it's like when you come and talk to the parents, I like what you do. I think it's amazing, and I'm like, oh wow, cool. So I think I've done justice to that part of it, part of your question, right?
Oh wow, I mean, man, this is jarring stuff, and I imagine that we even barely scratched, on these issues. So I want to just take it back to the parents, because it seems like a lot of these issues, they start at home, right? And I'm not gonna, as parents, we have a lot of work to do, right? And for parents who might be busy and all that, it's justifiable, because the things you are busy about is to make the life of your children better. But the irony is that when we are so caught up in our work and our vocations, our children will suffer. There's no doubt about that. And the very thing we set out to accomplish in the first place becomes nothing when you come back home and there's no child there. I mean, the child is there, but you've lost that grip on that child. What's the hope for parents? What are some of the, how can we get it back right? For parents who might have lost that grip, because I have friends now who are coping with some of these issues. Their children are older, and they're battling some form of addiction, or drug addiction, sex addiction, and these are still children in the young prime of their lives. How can parents get it? What are some resources or some tools that parents can use, or what are some even tips on being vigilant, but at the same time mindful and being in tune with your kids, so that way they're opening up to you. They're not going to look at their peers on internet and be looking at what other people are doing and be able to live life and all that kind of stuff. What's the hope for parents, and how can they get it back right?
All right. Thank you for that. I think it really starts from the intentionality. It starts from your heart, right? There are a lot of materials out there, related to parenting. It's good that people do expose themselves to these materials, but it really, really starts from the heart. I think the first thing that the child wants to know is what is in your heart, who you are, just you being that vulnerable. Many people are not even comfortable being vulnerable to their children. Many people are not comfortable vulnerable to their partners, their spouses. Being vulnerable, they are not, that system is not there. And the best way to get anybody to be vulnerable to you, to open up to you in terms of your children, is for you to show them the way. You have to show them and be vulnerable. So let's assume there's a parent that is at a stage where he feels, oh, I think I might have lost that child. Yeah. I mean, if we're having people that have success stories from room 707, it's because we pretty much just show them the way. I have people today that call me my mother.
Wow.
Because I only did one thing. I have several people like that. I only did one thing. I listened, felt the pain, vulnerable as well. Oh, I've gone through this. I don't have a perfect life. What you see now, and you are celebrating a lot. And today, I'm not ashamed of any struggles I had in the past. I'm not ashamed of it. Back then, I was ashamed of it. I'm not ashamed of any struggles I had in the past. So I pretty much open up to them that way, show them that I'm here and I'm committed to you being better. I'm committed to you being better. They see it in my actions, in my words, and before you know it, they start believing it. Once they start believing it, then the journey starts, the journey to finding healing, finding redemption, just wanting to be a better person, seeing you as a role model and wanting to be better. Just from that, they start. So I'll say the same thing, basic, before you even go into 100 laws of being a better parent. Oh, let's start with what is really in your heart. Showing you getting to the point where you can show your kids or your children that this is who I am. I'm not that perfect. Our parents back then told us that you scored A's all through. No, I'm not that perfect. I have struggles. You raised your voice at your child. You own it. Or the child watched you raise your voice at somebody. You own it. I shouldn't have done that, but I did. and I shouldn't have done that, but I'm working on it. They will appreciate that. That openness, that candor, that vulnerability. You have to show them the way. Even if you are vulnerable to a stone, the stone will respond to you.
Yeah.
But I mean to say that. So any human at all, so you want to get to that young girl, that young child, own it, validate how they feel, their response. You have any child that is that's a bit rebellious, just show them vulnerability. Show them I will always be here, no matter what. Like, if you need to come back home, I'll always be here. You don't try to judge them. You don't try to invalidate their feelings. I watched a video once of in America, right? A mother and a son were in court, and I don't know if you stumbled on that video. And the mother took the son to court because she claimed that the guy is after her life. Yeah. And you saw the video, and the boy says, the shock on the mother's face the first time the boy said it. She didn't believe that it made that kind of impact in him. But he's probably even saying it to her for the first time since it happened. Because she had a shock, like, oh my God, this was just something that happened, but the boy never forgot. If a system had even been created to get into what was going through his head, imagine that I had the system to express the things I was going through rather than to my parents. It would have been good, right? But I found a way out of it. I found my part out of it. Thank God. Imagine if the guy I talked about took advantage of me that day. That's my beginning of, I'll be pregnant with a child and everything would have just, you can imagine. So that's it, just vulnerability and all of that. Now, there are cases where you know that you need to seek help. That's the truth. You can't really handle it on your own. And you need to seek help. So in that moment, you're looking at reaching out to therapists, professionals, because you can't just handle it. A young lady had reached out to me from Canada, and a brother in Nigeria is abused, is addicted to drugs. Parents, pastors, they're trying to find you. Please help us, help me, ma. And sometimes it's funny because I have a life, I have a professional life, right? So I get these messages. It looks like because it's really hurting them in that moment, like drop whatever you're doing and answer us. This thing is crazy, But the point here is, I just asked that, what drugs is your brother taking now? Are you aware? And then she mentioned it to me. I said, oh wow, unfortunately he has to go to rehab, and that's it. He has to go to rehab. If he started taking that particular drug, he has to go to rehab. He has to go to a therapist. So there are levels that you assess the situation. Start from yourself. Where did I get it wrong? But don't blame yourself too much. If you knew better, you would have done better, right? If you knew better, you would have done better. Just you being able to open up to your daughter or your son like that. I made mistakes raising you. You see, because after a child is 10, he's already formed. There's so much you can do. So your best shot is between the age of 1 and 7. Your best shot. So, if you're listening and your child is already above 10 and you feel like you're not happy with what, they're going right now, well, you want to approach it with the vulnerability and all of that. Not like vulnerability is not important from when they're pretty young, right? So vulnerability and all of that. But after a point, you just know that, you need to just pretty much seek help, But being in that position where you just go, I made big mistakes recently. I think I should have been a better parent. Own it. There's nothing. I should have been a better parent. If I knew better, I would have acted better. I would have acted differently. But I want you to be better than I am. I wish you'd be better than I am. And I'm committed to holding your hands on that journey. As simple as that conversation is. Genuine. Not the one that you're very genuine. Find a way to get to the child, and that's it. And you do your best. You do your best in prayers and trying to reach out to the child, validating the child. Ensure you do your best. Don't give up, right? So easily. Don't give up on that child, and just do your best. and then you leave the rest for God. That's all. Leave the rest for God. You see, I went through crazy childhood. I can easily blame my parents for it, but that's one-dimensional. There is a multi-dimensional aspect to that, which is God's overall plan, right? My parents were just easy targets to get to me, right? And I understand that we all, in our human self, we will tend a lot be more low resolution. That's one dimensional. We see things like this. I can easily tell you, because I'm on the show, I can tell you that, oh, my parents did my brother. But I understand today that every single thing that happened was beyond just my parents. And that was the healing that I needed. It was easy for me to forgive my father. I knew that the truth is that the devil would always use the weakest link. And every struggling home you see today, every divorce, every whatever story it is, the real target of a marriage, of a broken marriage, are the children, because the enemy is transgenerational in nature, which is how God is also transgenerational in nature, right? Because how do you preserve the gospel? How do you preserve bad things? You know, there has to be a circle. So the seeds are the target, the children are the target. And that's why we have to, when you call yourself a parent, it's not just about donating either sperm cells or an egg. You have to be intentional about it. People need to understand this thing. You don't just stumble, it's good, we are married, and all that. You have to be intentional about it. You understand that there's an overall agenda. This is multi-dimensional. There's so much. I have to be careful. I have to be this. How I relate with my child, I need to be intentional. Whatever sacrifice I need to make right now is not just for her. It's for the future, right? Or him or her, but it's for the future. So you see how the devil, the enemy, will really always target the children. Once you plant the seed, I would have killed myself because I thought my father did not like me, or my parents. But today I know better. I know better. I know that, of course, the enemy was after every good thing. Imagine that in my position now, I have to help almost 300 young people out of whatever they've gone through. I've had close to 15 suicide cases. I think I'm being favored. None of the suicide cases I've had eventually killed themselves, committed suicide. But I mean, I've gotten to points where someone saying to me, "You're the last person I'm going to speak to." They were at the point of suicide. Sent me the last note with teardrop on the paper already. So what do you say to that person in that moment? In that moment, telling you already that you're the last person that I want you to know that you're the last person I'm going to speak with, blah, blah, blah. It's not one, it's not two, it's not, several times. And in that moment, what do you say to them? What do you say to them? So having walked back, and when I lost my mom as well, I went back to that bubble of depression. The only thing I didn't do was commit suicide. So I've felt it. And you see how it feels like the enemy was really winning all those years I was struggling with those things. But really, God had an overall plan for where I'm going to be today, right? So I'm saying these things about my dad and all of that, but I'm not saying it in regret or anything. I'm saying like, oh, thank you for what you did, because I'm a better person today, So that's pretty much it, right? Suicide cases, I had a young lady that reached out on the 24th of December, and she wanted to kill herself on the 25th, on Christmas Day. She wanted when everybody is happy, so she would kill herself, and then everybody was sad because her parents, her family was not just aware about how she was dealing with the things she was dealing with. And I remember having a conversation with that lady about 6 hours on the phone, till really late in the night. She was all in tears for 5 hours out of it, sharing her story. I just listened, asked a bit of question. In the final moment, she says, "Ma, I want to ask you a question." Someone that's been crying and all of that. And then all of a sudden she develops this, "I want to ask you a question." I said, "Yeah, go ahead. Are you assuring me that if I decide not to end my life, things are going to be better? Things are going to be better?" I knew that my response to her in that moment would determine if she's going to kill herself or not. She didn't tell me she wanted to kill herself the next day, but she She had attempted suicide like 3 times. So a friend recommended her to room 707. So I just responded. I said, I have no doubt that you're going to be fine. I said, do you know why? I said, because if God doesn't help you, our own case, if she decides to commit suicide, she's gone through a lot. One of the baddest cases I've had. And that was it. I just told her, if God can help you, nobody else can. And that's it. Today, on the 1st of January, the following year, so she comes to me and looks for me and comes to me and says, Miss Agbebi, I didn't plan to see here 2022. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Actually, that night I spoke with you, I was going to end my life the next day. I didn't plan to see 2022. So she came to me on the 1st of January. So when you hear stories like that, you know that there's so much you have to do. There's so much you have to do. You can't, my children know room 707, my office, they know room 707. That's the one I find fulfillment in. I've had a lot of success stories, career-wise, generally, but I've not felt the sense of fulfillment I've felt in the last 2 years. Until I started room 707. And guess what? I started it at a point where I didn't see it coming. I was broken. I lost my mom and I was broken. It broke me completely. It broke me. I just knew that my story reminds me that God uses broken people. Broken pencils can still draw straight lines. Pencil is broken, you condemn it, right? It's still useful. You don't throw it away just because it's broken in the middle, right? And God used me in that moment. When I lost my dad, I'll say this story finally. When I lost my dad, the day my dad died, he's had cancer. I've gone through grief 2 weeks before he died because I knew he was going to die. Pharmacists die. Vast a bit with medical knowledge and stuff. He had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And we found that February. He died within 3 weeks of finding out.
Oh, wow.
So on the day he died, it was a Sunday, and I went to church on that day. I had face masks on to cover the tears, and I wore big glasses, And that's why I say, after that experience, I told my Christian brothers and sisters, nobody could see past it except one young lady. And that young lady, I counseled her months before that time. The day I counseled her in church, she was in tears. She couldn't talk. And I was crying. And I was in my car. I was going to my car. Then she comes to me that Sunday. And then she says, Miss Agbebi, can I give you a rug? Really? I was faking it though. I fake it because, hi. I go, hi. I was going to I was like, hi, how are you? I was like, I'm good, but can I give you a hug? And then she hugs me. And then she starts praying for me. So that Sunday, the following Sunday was when he died. A young girl came to my car and says, Ma, look at my brother's final note. He wrote a suicide note, and she said that she was planning to commit suicide. They have 3 children. They have 3 siblings. The only reason she didn't commit suicide was in that moment, her brother sent her a WhatsApp note of a WhatsApp message of his suicide note. So in that moment, I was going to the hospital to see my dad, but I felt like this was really bad. And I said, you know what, can you come to my house so we talk? And she said, no problem. So I was driving out to my house and my sister called me. Oh, daddy's case is now really bad. Blah, blah, blah. Where are you now? And the young lady had no idea what was happening because I didn't tell her anything. I chose in that moment. I had the choice to drive to my dad's hospital or take her for counseling. And in that moment, I did something in my human nature. My flesh was very stupid. I drove her to my house to counsel. And all those moments, she had no idea. But I knew the moment my father was going to die. And I told her that my dad is passing this minute. But I chose to be here. Make it count. Don't ever consider any of your life. She just looked at me like, are you serious? I said, yeah. I made the choice to be here. She was just amazed. And she was seated right there when they break the
wow. He passed away around that time too.
Oh, yes, he did. So she was seated in the house when my husband called a close friend to come to the house to break the news to me. She was seated. She was just like, what's happening? Right? Because when I say the story to people, like, oh, you're so strong. No, I was so strong. I was just empowered in that moment. I know that what I do now is beyond me, right? I've gotten to the point where it's beyond me. I knew my father is going to pass, but this is a young lady that has a life ahead of her. She has a brother trying to end his life as well. And in that moment, I made a decision to, and I mean, she's doing really good today, to the glory of God. So,
wow.
Funny life, funny stories.
There's so much. But before we go quickly, let's talk about your significant other. His name is
Yes.
Agbebi. In just few words, what has that been like for you being a wife? We've talked about your role as a mom, as a sister, as a mom, as a sister, as a daughter, but we haven't really talked about your role as a wife. I imagine he's very supportive because, I mean, for all the things you do, you have to have support. So what has married life been like for you? And if you want to shout out, to him and do a shout out to your kids as well. Listen to this. This is your time to do that.
Yeah, shout out to my husband, right? He's very, 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 very absolutely supportive. There's no way, people look at me and say, you wear many hats and you wear them so well. And I'm like, there's no way I'll do those things without my husband, right? Pretty much, I have 3 kids. 3 kids is a lot. One is a handful. I'm sure you get it. One is a handful, but I have 3 kids. My husband is like the perfect father. I'm telling you, like, there's no way I would be, people celebrate me being a mother. I like your relation with your kids. You look good. Professionally, I mean, I have 2 jobs and all of that. But my husband has pretty much been the backbone. There are times when you understand that, for a man to understand that my wife has a special calling, and has a special calling, and I need to support her, and he decides to take the back seat. That's a lot of strength for a man. That's a lot of strength. Right? So I really, really celebrate it. It's my coded strength, my silent strength. My husband is very quiet. Very, very quiet and reserved. Yeah, very quiet and reserved. So but it is my silent strength. There's pretty much, I can't tell you many times I have engagements. My week is pretty much booked. My next week I have several meetings. My weekend, I'm not going to stay at home. I have sessions, right? I have sessions Saturday, Sunday. I won't be at home. My husband mans the house. Mans and women's the house. There's no gap. My children don't feel the gap that I'm not around. And it's painful. But the one day my husband decides not to stay at home, my children may not sleep. They will be missing him. I'm telling you, they can't stand there. And it's vice versa. I can travel for 1 week. But my husband is like, how do you do it? I can't leave my children. I'm like, I can do it too. I already know what to say. Quite supportive guy, yeah.
There are different abilities God equips us with. But is it amazing how, we meet people who just compliment us and bring out the best out of us? Because you do need that support. If your home life isn't quite as solid and as comfortable and as inspiring as nourishing, you can't give all the things you're giving and, still want to keep giving more. Because I know for you, your primary ministry is definitely your family, right? So, and kudos to all the supportive spouses out there. I think that's very, very important. Thanks for highlighting that. Finally, for parents who might want to reach out to you, because I imagine that, before you even talk about that quickly, just what's the future looking like for Room 707? Would you want to maybe develop an app where people can just reach out and have like counselors on around the clock to, counsel people who might need those real time, quick counseling. And but what's the future for 707? And then where can parents find you for resources and even school proprietors and proprietors or those that are in organizational leadership where they need some form of mentoring or just some of the things you guys do and how they can equip their young words. That would be good.
Okay, great. I need to mention this, right? Room 707 actually started from my church, the new church, right? So that's where it started from. At some point, the Holy Spirit has said to me to take the gospel outside of the walls of the church, because many times if you wait for people to walk into church, they are broken beyond repair sometimes. They've been bleeding for the longest of time, and some people, that's if they ever find themselves walking into the church. So you need to go out. And so that's what evolved into the 707 that people know today. And from there, we decided to go on social media. And in fact, initially we had more foreign members, followers than Nigerian, than locals, right? More foreign guys, So how do you reach out to us? For now, we're on Instagram. I said all of that to say that we haven't separated us, registered ourselves like as an organization, exploring, creating an hub and things like that, raising funds and stuff, But for now, you can reach us on Instagram at your room 707. At your room 707. You can reach out to us, send us a DM. I have a team of about 20 coaches actually, and typically our therapy models is like 3 months. So you have group therapy happening, you have one-on-one sessions as well. But I've seen that we're having so many people reach out, and what the future is really looking like for us is how we could collapse that system to be able to accommodate more people than we do right now. The maximum a coach can see can coach is maybe 2 people at once. We're having a lot of people reach out. So we started opening up our group therapy sessions, and they are online. And so far, the last one we did last weekend, we had about 100 people, register for it. So imagine if those 100 people were assigned to one coach. The maximum they can do is maybe 40 at once, but then we have 100 people. And these are 100 people limited with no walls, right? So you have people from all over the world joining us, right? And so we have those group therapy sessions. We have 2 weekends set up with us so we can bring in more people. And then we're planning on, like I said, we are planning to release a book that will be targeted towards parents. We'll just put in true life stories in that book. Not just parents will learn a lot from it when it comes to being intentional about their children, but it will apply to everyone as well. Just you being able to hear the stories of the real struggles of people. Maybe then people can be a lot more intentional about how they actually express love to the fellow human being and how they treat people, because somebody may look all beautiful and all of that. You don't really know what the baggage that they're carrying with them there. We also have a podcast, really. It's called Scars with Room 707, right? It's still, we've only released like 2 episodes anyways. But with Scars with 707, same way we're bringing people into the sessions, into the shows that will tell their true life stories, right? True life stories. Use domestic, sexual, whatever it is. They come on the show and they tell their stories. So we have the podcast going out there, just trying to impact people in the best way that we can. Hopefully the app thing will come on board soon. But we also partner with a few mental health organizations as well. There's one that has an app where it's easy. So we just transfer any body, that's what we call them, to them that needs more professional management. And then of recent, I got to link up with a rehab center where you just transfer bodies to, right? So that's what the future is looking like for this year. this is part of our therapy stuff. I'll drop this before we go. So I say to people that the beginning of your journey towards being self-aware or finding some sort of peace with yourself and the universe is identifying yourself, your identity, your unique identity. And for every human, basically, we are Trinity. You are a spirit that has a soul and lives in a body. You are Trinity, right? But many times people emphasize what they can see on their physical. It's not their body. It's not their fault. Like I said, we are humans and tend to be one-dimensional. So we are very low resolution. The body is low resolution. There is the soul part of you. There's the mind part of you. Actually more explorative, more powerful than the body. And the honest truth is that whatever it is that's led you in a part of depression has only gotten to your body. It has no authority. It doesn't have the right or the authority to affect your mind or your spirit except you let it. Right? So understanding that your mind, body, and spirit. So yes, you're a Christian. I know in church community, people say, how can you be depressed? Don't you remember what the word of God says? But there's a soul part of you which needs to be nourished, which needs to be renewed. And so when the scripture says that he restores my soul, very specific. So for Restoration Conference, which is happening this weekend, that's what we want to do. Embracing the purest form of love that exists and purifies. So we're going to have listening parties, healing sessions, therapy, group therapy sessions as well, and all of that. Just trying to embrace the totality of people. So they are not just spiritual people in church. You know, when the person preaches, yes, I can do it on Sunday. By Wednesday, they're back to depression. Why is my life like this? I'm not making any way in my life. But that is, your spirit did not change, but that's your soul struggling, your mind. And then one point God said to me, many Christians do not have the capacity in their minds to receive the things that they're praying to God for in their secret place. In their secret place. Yeah, that's the truth. So we pray for blessing. We can't even identify with it in our mind. So people have not come to see the three elements that actually makes them them. If you call me Kemi now, I'm Kemi, but that's what you know. My soul is not visible. It's not tangible, right? You can see it. So, but it's much more, like there's so much more to Kemi than what you see outside. You know, so that identity is the beginning. Self-awareness is the beginning of your journey to wholesomeness and just finding peace, love, and freedom. That's a word that's so underrated today. But that's where your highest level of creativity, divinity, and purity actually happens. Freedom, when you get to the point where you're not who you are because the media is making you who you are. You are under pressure to be some kind of person, even to your children or to your husband. But you first start from yourself, you know. So that's so deep, right? I think that can form my final words on the More Simbi podcast. I had a lot.
Thank you. You've given us so much, and I'm going to tag all of your podcast and also your website, your Instagram page. Definitely, I think I should codify that and make it into an organization.
I'm working on it.
The potential for impact. You already have it started, so this will also ensure more reach and more impact. Thank you, Kemi. I got to know a lot more about you, and definitely understanding where your fire is coming from. It's a testament to using those pain points that, you know, the enemy would want to use to keep us silent. You've turned that around. You've been very vocal about it. And look at the growth. It's not only hard for you, but also those who have been recipients of, you know, just your vulnerability, your talents, and your time. And I pray that, you know, you keep doing greater things and God will keep equipping you and your team to, you know, do more stuff. As you, you know, keep wanting to expand more, if there are more ways you want us to help on the podcast with visibility or collaborations, please don't hesitate to reach out. I love what you do. I just imagine if I had a source of that growing up, you know, it would have made a lot of impact, much more impact on my life. And so kudos to you for using your platform to equip others, you know, almost like going back and helping the Kemi who was little. What could I have done for her? What kind of help would I have, you know? And this is what I want listeners to take away from. Like whatever you've gone through, your dirtiest shame, your secrets, those things that have held you back, how can you metabolize those traumas and not just even just metabolizing them to the whole, but how can you extend that? Because I found that the times I've flourished the most was when I took those parts of me that I wasn't very happy about, and I used that as a way to share with somebody else who might
Mm.
need it. Sharing of our stories. But be careful how you do it. You don't want to have those vulnerability hangovers. Make sure you've done the work on yourself. You're forgiving those you need to forgive. You've established, things you need to establish, and watch how your life becomes. You find more purpose in living. And in addition to what you said about identity, I think your purpose in life. Make sure you identify that, and it's not from your status or things you've acquired or your wealth and all that. Everyone has a purpose, so find that purpose, but make sure you anchor your identity in something beyond, hopefully beyond it. For us, Kemi and myself, we anchor it in Christ because we're Christians. So for you, I'm not here to preach, the gospel right now, but find out something bigger than you. We hope you will hold on to a higher power. For all that said, thank you so much, Kemi. Definitely, you're a force, and I know the future is just bright for you. And kudos to you on how you're balancing all as a mom, as a wife, as a community member, and your other communities of practice that you belong to, your church, your work. But thank you for giving us a slice of your life today. And on behalf of everyone on the podcast, I want to say thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to
Yeah,
another time on the show. Right. Thank you so much for what you do more.
definitely. I'll bring you back. I know this is not just there, but let me let you get some hours, some minutes back because we've gone over time. But thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. My pleasure. That's
All right,
our
yeah, have a
family
good
as well.
night. Kisses to your beautiful daughters, by the way. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, bye. All right, everyone. That was the podcast with Kemi. Thank you all for tuning on thank you for tuning in on this episode of the Sibyl podcast. I learned a lot just about parenting and being vigilant and the importance of creating a space where our children can be very open or our words as guardians. And we hope this episode resonated with you as well. If you'd like to catch more episodes of the podcast, check us out on Facebook and Instagram as well, and also on the website www.mosibyl.com. Well, this was another production from the Sibyl podcast, and I'm your host, Sibyl. Bye for now.